Fai and Yoshiko lived together in a modest one-bedroom flat in Mushin, a suburb of Lagos State. Mushin was always alive with noise, crowded streets, endless traffic, and music blasting from nearly every corner. Yet inside their tiny apartment there was calm. They didn't own much. Their sofa sagged from years of use. The television sometimes flickered in black and white, and their ceiling fan groaned like an old woman crying for help each time it spun. But despite it all, they were content, because they had each other. Femi worked as a junior engineer in a small company. His pay was modest, and after covering rent and transport, he barely had anything left. He had just moved to Lagos to join her husband, and was still searching for work. She had studied human resources at one of Nigeria's top universities. While waiting for employment, she devoted herself to keeping their home neat and welcoming. With the little they had, she prepared tasty meals that Femi always looked forward to after long days. Together, they talked, laughed, and dreamed. Most evenings after dinner, they sat by their doorway, hand in hand, watching people pass by. They often imagined the life they wanted. "One day, we'll have a big house with flowers," Femi would say with a grin. "And a garden plus a playground for our children," he would add. Even on nights when NEPA failed to provide electricity, leaving them sweating in the heat, he would hold his hand and whisper that things would improve. Their neighbors fondly called them the lovebirds of Mushin, because everyone could see how deeply they cared for one another. Femi had first met E during their service year in Anambra State. The moment he saw her at one of their weekly CDS meetings, his heart skipped in a way it never had before. Drawn to her instantly, he walked up and said, "Hi, I'm Femi." She looked up, smiled warmly, and replied, "Hi, I'm E." That simple exchange was the beginning of everything. Femi was tall and slim, while he was plump and of average height, the opposite of him. As they grew close, some fellow corps members mocked their pairing. "What's that skinny guy doing with that fat girl?" some teased. "How can a pencil fall in love with a balloon?" others joked. But neither of them cared. Femi brushed off the ridicule, and he never let their words affect her. Femi even told her he wanted to marry her one day. He had laughed and said, "Let's finish service first." After NYSC, Femi landed a small job. Without waiting, he bought a cheap ring from a roadside stand and proposed. He joyfully said yes. They held a simple wedding, attended only by family and close friends. Before their marriage, Femi had lived in a cramped face me I face you house in Mushin, where neighbors shared everything, from bathrooms to sweeping chores. The corridor was always wet, filled with noise and quarrels. So when they moved into their one-bedroom flat, it felt like a major step forward, a foundation for the brighter future they envisioned. They painted the walls themselves and hung old curtains to make the windows look nice. He made the place feel like a true home, simple but spotless. Every day, Femi kept striving for more. He sent countless CVs to companies and drafted proposals, hoping for contracts. Though he often came home tired and discouraged, he never let him lose hope. She would smile and say, "You're the best engineer I know. One day, they'll see what I see in you." And Femi's heart would lift again. Even when people mocked their financial struggles, the couple held firmly to their belief in each other. Months later, he finally got a call from a top company inviting her for an interview. She wore her best outfit, prayed with Femi, and went. Days later, the company offered her the job with a good salary. She rushed home, hugged Femi, and shouted with joy, "I got it! I got the job!" Femi spun her around, grinning with pride. That night, they celebrated at a small buka nearby, eating amla and yuta soup. 3 months into her new role, he saved enough for them to rent a 2-bedroom apartment in Yaba. It wasn't perfect, but it was cleaner, quieter, and closer to work. Since she earned more, he took on most household expenses to ease Femi's burden. He felt truly blessed to have such a supportive wife. They bought a new mattress, a second-hand fridge, and a small gas cooker. Life was starting to look brighter, until the unexpected happened. One morning at work, a colleague told Femi to report to HR. Nervous, he knocked on the office door. The HR manager handed him a brown envelope. Inside was his termination letter. His hands trembled as sweat rolled down his face, despite the cold air conditioning. Devastated, he trudged home slowly, as if walking in heavy rain. When he returned from work, she saw his expression and instantly knew something was wrong. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I lost my job," he whispered. She hugged him tightly and reassured him. "We'll be fine. You'll find something better, something worthy of you." Though Femi hated depending on her, he never once made him feel like a burden. She carried the family on her shoulders, cooking his favorite meals, cheering him with jokes, calling him sweet names, and kissing his forehead each night. She even searched for job opportunities on his behalf, bringing home listings she found. One day, her colleague, Mr. Idris, told her about a foreign company entering Nigeria that needed contractors for major projects. He shared it with Femi, but he doubted himself. "Why would they pick me? I've never gotten a contract before. They'll go for the bigger guys," he said, unsure. But he encouraged him firmly. "There's always a first time. I believe in you." Together, they worked on his proposal, packaged it neatly, and submitted it. Weeks went by with no news. Then one afternoon, while Femi was watching TV, his phone buzzed. He opened the email and screamed, "I got it. I got the contract." When he came home, he hugged her so tightly she could barely breathe. They knelt together, thanking God. The contract was worth millions. Femi signed immediately and began work. Soon, the foreign company gave him even bigger projects with huge payments. He hired staff, bought equipment, and rented an office space. At last, he felt like a real boss. He was thrilled, always supporting him, asking about the project, reminding him to rest, and sharing ideas. After a few months, Femi looked at E and said, "I think it's time we move again, this time to somewhere better." They rented a beautiful duplex in Victoria Island. The house was spacious, with gleaming floors, wide windows, and even a small garden. He broke down in tears the moment she stepped into the house. "God is truly good," she whispered. They had bought brand new furniture and decorated everything beautifully. From their tiny home in Mushy to this, what a long journey it had been. Yi's heart overflowed with gratitude, until things began to shift. It started small, almost unnoticeable, then grew into something even the blind could sense. Femi began staying out late. When he asked, his excuses were the same. "I had a long meeting," or "traffic was terrible." Soon, late nights turned into entire nights away. He didn't know what to think at first, so she convinced herself, "It's just stress from work. That's all." She clung to this explanation for comfort. He tried to reach him. "Femi, we're drifting apart. I feel so lonely. Let's fix this before it gets worse." He would only nod and say, "I'll try." But nothing changed. Instead, he changed his phone's password, smiling to himself whenever he was scrolling. The distance between them widened until he felt like a stranger in her own marriage. Then one morning, her world shattered. On her way to work, she saw Femi outside a mall, holding hands with a slim, beautiful woman. Her chest tightened. He had told her he'd be in Abuja for a week on business. At the office, she called him, pretending she hadn't seen a thing. "Hello, baby." "Hello," he replied. "I just wanted to check on you. How's Abuja?" "Abuja is fine. I'm buried in work right now. Can I call you back later?" He ended the call. "Sure," he whispered, burying her head on her desk as tears spilled out. A few days later, Femi returned from his so-called trip. He acted normal, though inside she was crumbling. One evening, he left his phone unlocked on the bed while he went to the restroom. He hesitated, but then picked it up. On WhatsApp, she found endless chats with someone saved as numero uno. Her heart sank as she read. He had bought the woman an expensive car, rented her a duplex in Banana Island, his second home these days. Yi's hands trembled as tears blurred her sight. She opened the woman's profile picture. It was the same lady from the mall. Her heart pounded. She copied the number, ran a search, and discovered her real name. Jemima. She even found her address. Soon he was standing at Jemima's door, unsure why she had come. She took a deep breath and pressed the doorbell. Moments later, a stunning young woman appeared. "Yes? How can I help you?" "Good afternoon," he greeted softly. I'm Femi's wife." The woman's lips curled. "Oh, so you're the fat pig. You finally showed up." Her voice dripped with contempt. "He's told me all about you. How useless you are in bed. How you reek like an elephant. How he can't even wrap his arms around you to cuddle. And looking at you now, I can see he was right. Poor, pathetic husband of yours. E froze, stunned, her eyes filling with tears at the cruel words. So you knew he was married? She asked quietly. Yes. He told me from the start. And what's my own? That's your business, not mine. As for me, I'm here for the good life. She smirked. My advice? Hit the gym as soon as pos. But before she could finish, Yi's hand flew across her face. How dare you? You slut! He shouted. Jemima staggered back, her eyes blazing. You fat pig! You'll regret this. I swear, she screamed, like a wounded lioness. That evening, Femi stormed into the house in fury. E, what have you done? His voice boomed through the sitting room. He sat calmly on the sofa, sipping juice. That was fast. She's already told you. How dare you lay your filthy hands on Jemima? Are you insane? He roared. I should be asking you that. He shot back, her eyes burning with pain and rage. You cheated on me. And instead of apologizing, you're shouting at me? For what exactly? Then Femi said the unthinkable. You must apologize to her if you want this marriage to continue. The room went silent. He stared at him in shock. Then came even worse words. You're fat. You're ugly. I don't want you anymore. I'm tired of this marriage. I've been tired for a long time. Since you refused to be reasonable, I'm leaving. He went upstairs, packed a few clothes and documents, then walked out. You can keep the house, if you can pay the rent. Have a nice life. He spat before slamming the door. E broke. She cried night after night, unable to eat or sleep, praying desperately for Femi to return. Every knock at the door, every passing footstep gave her false hope. But he never came back. Weeks later, divorce papers arrived. Her grief consumed her. She lost focus at work, her performance plummeted. Her boss tried to pull her back in line, but he couldn't concentrate no matter how hard she tried. One day, she was summoned to the office, only to be handed a termination letter. She could no longer afford the rent, and was forced to leave the beautiful house on Victoria Island. In her moment of despair, she reached out to Ada, an old friend from her university days. Ada welcomed her warmly, cooked for her, comforted her, and reminded her daily with words of encouragement. You are strong. You are brave. You will rise again. At first, he couldn't believe those words. But one morning, staring at her reflection in the mirror, she whispered to herself, I will not let this destroy me. From that day, she began applying for jobs again, changed her hairstyle, bought fresh clothes, and carried a smile more often. She was ready for a new beginning. Not long after, he received a call from a large company inviting her for an interview for a senior executive position. She prayed, prepared thoroughly, and gave it her all. A week later, she got the job. The pay was impressive, and her new office sat high in a glass tower with cool air and breathtaking views. Meanwhile, Femi's world was collapsing. The company that had trusted him with a contract discovered he had mismanaged funds. His bank accounts were frozen, his cars and house were seized, and he was left with nothing. He moved completely into Jemima's home. But once Gemma realized Femi could no longer sustain her luxurious lifestyle, she began looking for her next victim. She went out often, placing herself in the right places until she quickly found a replacement. To her, Femi had become nothing more than a worn-out toy to be discarded. Without hesitation, she ended the relationship, calling him useless and inadequate. Shattered, Femi lashed out, accusing her of being a gold digger who drained him during his best days and abandoned him in hardship. Gemma laughed and reminded him of his own hypocrisy. Didn't you once say your wife stood by you when you had nothing? But the moment you touched a little money, you ran into another woman's arms, calling her too fat as your excuse. You and I are no different, Femi. Birds of the same feather. Now pack your things and leave my house. Femi refused. I'm not going anywhere. I paid the rent here, and I have every right to stay. Gemma smirked. Fine, then I'll leave. But don't forget to renew the rent. With that, she packed her belongings and walked out. When the rent expired, Femi couldn't afford to renew it. He gathered his few possessions into a worn travel bag and moved to Makoko, a poor slum in Lagos. There, he lived in a cramped room where hunger and despair became his closest companions. He sent out countless job applications, but no one would hire him. After many months, he finally received an invitation for an interview. He wore the only suit he had left, trying to mask his hunger and poverty. But his face was pale from constant mosquito bites and malnutrition. Before leaving, he whispered a prayer. "Oh Lord, don't let my village people follow me today. Amen." But at the interview venue, his pass was already waiting for him. After his first round, he was told he performed well, but his final approval would come from the senior HR executive. He was directed to her office. Walking in, he admired the elegant space and politely greeted, "Good morning." But when he looked up, his heart nearly stopped. Sitting confidently behind the large desk was E. Cold sweat broke out, and his heart pounded loudly. He responded calmly, pretending not to know him. "Good morning. May I have your CV? Or are you just here to stand and stare?" "No, ma'am," Femi stammered, quickly handing her his file. He skimmed through it and said firmly, "Mr. Alashuk, your CV is fine. But we won't be hiring you." Femi fell to his knees. "Please, forgive me. I was foolish. I let money blind me. This is the only job interview I've gotten in months. Please don't destroy me completely." He looked at him and gave a small bitter laugh. "Do you remember how I once begged you?" His desperate hands reached toward her, but she recoiled in disgust and called security. It took 2 strong guards to drag him out of the building. Sitting outside, he replayed his mistakes and the choices that ruined him. Slowly, he began the long walk back to Makoko. Halfway, he noticed one of his shoes was missing, lost during the scuffle. It was the only pair he owned. Broken, weary, and filled with regret, he kept walking. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more captivating African stories. Share in the comments what lessons you took away from this story. Like and share with your friends and loved ones. Until next time, goodbye.